Hi, and welcome to Mrs. Pam Reads. Today we are continuing in our story, The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. In our last video, the fish had been pulled up by Santiago, had gone sideways, and Santiago had basically thrust the harpoon into it. And that is where we pick up. Then the fish came alive with his death in him and rose high out of the water, showing all his great length and width and all his power and beauty. He seemed to hang in the air above the old man in the skiff. Then he fell into the water with a crash that sent spray over the old man and over all the skiff. The old man felt faint and sick, and he could not see well, but he cleared the harpoon line and let it run slowly through his raw hands, and when he could see, he saw the fish was on his back with his silver belly up. The shaft of the harpoon was projecting at an angle from the fish's shoulder, and the sea was discoloring with the red of the blood from his heart. First, it was dark as shoal in the blue water that was more than a mile deep. Then it spread like a cloud. The fish was silvery and still and floated in the waves. The old man looked carefully in the glimpse of vision that he had. Then he took 2 turns of the harpoon line about the bit in the bow and laid his head on his hands. Keep my head clear, he said against the wood of the bow. I am a tired old man, but I have killed this fish, which is my brother, and now I must do the slave work. Now I must prepare the nooses and the rope to lash him alongside, he thought. Even if we were 2 and swamped her to load him and bailed her out, this skiff would never hold him. I must prepare everything, then bring him in and lash him well and steep the mast and set sail for home. He started to push the fish in to have him alongside so that he could pass a line through his gills and out of his mouth and make his head fast alongside the bow. I want to see him, he thought, and to touch and to feel him. He is my fortune, he thought, but that is not why I wish to feel him. I think I felt his heart, he thought, when I pushed on the harpoon shaft the second time. Bring him in now and make him fast and get the noose around his tail and another around his middle to bind him to the skiff. Get to work, old man, he said. He took a very small drink of water. There is very much slave work to be done now that the fight is over. He looked up at the sky and then out at his fish. It's not the fish anymore, it's his fish. He looked at the sun carefully. It is not much more than noon, he thought, and the trade wind is rising. The lines all mean nothing now. The boy and I will splice them when we are home. Come on, fish, he said. The fish did not come. Instead, he lay there wallowing now in the seas, and the old man pulled the skiff up onto him. When he was even with him and had the fish's head against the bow, he could not believe his size. But he untied the harpoon rope from the bit, passed it through the fish's gills and out his jaws, made a turn around his sword, and then passed the rope through the other gill, made another turn around the bill, and knotted the double rope and made it fast to the bit in the bow. He cut the rope then and went astern to noose the tail. This is a lot of work. The fish had turned silver from his original purple and silver, and the stripes showed the same pale violet color as his tail. They were wider than a man's hand. When his fingerprints spread the fish's eye looked as detached as the mirrors in a periscope or as a saint in a procession. It was the only way to kill him, the old man said. He was feeling better since the water, and he knew he would not go away with his head clear. He's over 1,500 pounds the way he is, he thought, maybe much more. If he dresses out 2/3 of that, 30 cents a pound? I need a pencil for that, he said. My head is not that clear. But I think the great DiMaggio would be proud of me today. And no bone spurs, but the hands and the back hurt truly. I wonder what a bone spur is, he thought. Maybe we have them without knowing of it. He made the fish fast to the bow and turned the stern and to the middle thwart. That's an odd sentence. He was so big, it was like lashing a much bigger skiff alongside. He cut a piece of line and tied the fish's lower jaw against his bill so his mouth would not open and they would sail as cleanly as possible. Then he stepped the mast, and with the stick that was his gaff and with his broom rigged, the patched sail drew. The boat began to move, and half lying in the stern, he sailed southward. He did not need a compass to tell him where southwest was. He only needed the feel of the trade wind and the drawing of the sail. I better put a small line out with a spoon on it and try to get something to eat and drink for the moisture. But he could not find a spoon, and his sardines were rotten. Ugh. So he hooked a patch of yellow gulfweed with the gaff as they passed and shook it so that the small shrimps that were in it fell onto the planking of the skiff. There were more than a dozen of them, and they jumped and kicked like sand fleas. The old man pinched their heads off with his thumb and forefinger and ate them, chewing up the shells and the tails. They were very tiny, but he knew they were nourishing, and they tasted good. The old man still had 2 drinks of water in the bottle, and he used half of one after he had eaten the shrimps. The skiff was sailing well, considering the handicaps, and he steered with the tiller under his arm. He could see the fish, and he had only to look at his hands and feel his back against the stern to know that this had truly happened and was not a dream. At one time, when he was feeling so badly toward the end, he had thought perhaps it was a dream. Then, when he had seen the fish come out of the water and hang motionless in the sky before he fell, he was sure there was some great strangeness, and he could not believe it. Then he could not see well, although now he saw as well as ever. Now he knew there was the fish, and his hands and his back were no dream. The hands cure quickly, he thought. I bled them clean, and the salt water will heal them. The dark water of the true Gulf is the greatest healer that there is. All I must do is keep the head clear. The hands have done their work and will sail well. But his mouth shut and his tail straight up and down, we sail like brothers. Then his head started to become a little unclear, and he thought, is he bringing me in, or am I bringing him in? If I were towing him behind, there would be no question, nor if the fish were in the skiff with all dignity gone, there would be no question either. But they were sailing together, lashed side by side, and the old man thought, let me bring him in if it pleases him. I am only better than him through trickery, and he meant me no harm. Let him bring me in, if it pleases him. They sailed well, and the old man soaked his hands in the salt water and tried to keep his head clear. There were high cumulus clouds and enough cirrus above them so that the old man knew the breeze would last all night. The old man looked at the fish. So we're back to the fish. It was his fish there for a second. Constantly to make sure it was true. It was an hour before the first shark hit him. The shark was not an accident. He had come up from deep down in the water as the dark cloud of blood had settled and dispersed in the mile deep sea. He had come up so fast and absolutely without caution that he broke the surface of the blue water and was in the sun. Then he fell back into the sea and picked up the scent and started swimming on the course of the skiff and the fish had taken. Sometimes he lost the scent, but he would pick it up again or have just a trace of it, and he swam fast and hard on course. He was a very big mako shark, built to swim as fast as the fastest fish in the sea, and everything about him was beautiful except his jaws. His back was blue as swords fish, and his belly was silver, and his hide was smooth and handsome. He was built as a swordfish, except for his huge jaws, which were tight shut now as he swam fast, just under the surface, with his high dorsal fin knifing through the water without wavering. The inside the closed double lip of his jaws, all of his 8 rows of teeth slanted inwards. They were not the ordinary pyramid-shaped teeth of most sharks. They were shaped like a man's fingers when they are crisped like claws. They were nearly as long as the fingers of the old man, and they had razor-sharp cutting edges on both sides. This was a fish built to feed on all the fishes in the sea that were so fast and strong and well armed that they had no other enemy. Now he speeded up as he smelled the fresher scent, and his blue dorsal fin cut the water. When the old man saw him coming, he knew that this was a shark that had no fear at all and would do exactly what he wished. He prepared the harpoon and made the rope fast while he watched the shark come on. The rope was short as it lacked what he had cut away to lash the fish. The old man's head was clear and good now, and he was full of resolution, but he had little hope. It was too good to last, he thought. He took one look at the great fish as he watched the shark close in. It might as well have been a dream, he thought. I cannot keep him from hitting me, but maybe I can get him. Dentuso, he thought. Dentuso. Dentuso. Maybe. He thought. Bad luck to your mother. Oh, wow. It's like a curse. The shark closed fast astern, and when he hit the fish, the old man saw his mouth open and his strange eyes and the clicking chop of the teeth as he drove forward in the meat just above the tail. The shark's head was out of the water and his back was coming out, and the old man could hear the noise of skin and flesh ripping on the big fish when he rammed the harpoon down onto the shark's head at a spot where the line between his eyes intersected with the line that ran straight back from his nose. It's a good shot. There were no such lines. There was only the heavy, sharp blue head and the big eyes and the clicking, thrusting, all swallowing jaws. But that was the location of the brain, and the old man hit it. He hit it with his blood-mushed hands driving a good harpoon with all his strength. He hit it without hope, but with resolution and complete malignancy. The shark swung over, and the old man saw his eyes. He was not alive, and then he swung over once again, wrapping himself in 2 loops of the rope. The old man knew that he was dead, but the shark would not accept it. Then, on his back, with his tail lashing and his jaws clicking, the shark plowed over the water as a speedboat does. The water was white where his tail beat it, and 3/4 of his body was clear above the water when the rope became taut, shivered, and snapped. The shark lay quietly for a little while on the surface, and the old man watched him. Then he went down very slowly. He took about 40 pounds, the old man said aloud. He took my harpoon too, and all the rope, he thought, and now my fish bleeds again, and there will be others. He did not like to look at the fish anymore, since he had been mutilated. When the fish had been hit, it was as though he himself were hit. But I killed the shark that hit my fish, he thought, and he was the biggest dentuso that I ever saw, and God knows that I have seen big ones. It was too good to last, he thought. I wish it had been a dream now, and that I had never hooked the fish and was alone in bed on the newspapers. But man is not made for defeat, he said. A man can be destroyed, but not defeated. I am sorry that I killed the fish, though, he thought. Now the bad time is coming, and I do not even have the harpoon. The dentuso is cruel and able and strong and intelligent, but I was more intelligent than he was. Perhaps not, he thought. Perhaps I was only better armed. Don't think, old man, he said aloud. Sail on course and take it when it comes. But I must think, he thought, because it is all I have left. That and baseball. I wonder how the great DiMaggio would have liked the way I hit him in the brain. It was no great thing, he thought. Any man can do it. Do you think my hands were as great a handicap as the bone spurs? I cannot know. I never had anything wrong with my heel except the time the stingray stung it when I stepped on him when swimming and paralyzed the lower leg and made the unbearable pain. Ooh, all right, I'm going to get a sip. All right. Think about something cheerful, old man, he said. Every minute now, you are closer to home. You sail lighter for the loss of 40 pounds. He knew quite well the pattern of what could happen when he reached the inner part of the current. But there was nothing to be done now. Yes, there is, he said aloud. I can lash my knife to the butt of one of the oars. So he did that with the tiller under his arm and the sheet of the sail under his foot. Now, he said, I'm still an old man, but I am not unarmed. The breeze was fresh now, and he sailed on well. He watched only the forward part of the fish, and some of his hope returned. It is silly not to hope, he thought. Besides, I believe it is a sin. Do not think about sin, he thought. There are enough problems now without sin. Also, I have no understanding of it. I have no understanding of it, and I am not sure that I believe in it. Perhaps it was a sin to kill the fish. I suppose it was, even though I did it to keep me alive and feed many people. But then everything is a sin. Do not think about sin. It is much too late for that, and there are people who are paid to do it. Let them think about it. You were born to be a fisherman, as a fish was born to be a fish. San Pedro was a fisherman, as was the father of the great DiMaggio. But he liked to think about all things that he was involved in, and since there was nothing to read and he did not have a radio, he thought much, and he kept on thinking about sin. You did not kill the fish only to keep alive and sell for food, he thought. You killed him for pride, and because you are a fisherman, you loved him when he was alive, and you loved him after. You love him. I think that's a typo. I think it's supposed to be if you love him. It is not a sin to kill him, or is it more? You think too much, old man, he said aloud. But you enjoyed killing the dentuso, he thought. He lives on the live fish as you do. He is not a scavenger, nor just a moving appetite as some sharks are. He is beautiful and noble and knows no fear of anything. I killed him in self-defense, the man said aloud, and I killed him well. Besides, he thought, everything kills everything else in some way. Fishing kills me exactly as it keeps me alive. The boy keeps me alive, he thought. I must not deceive myself too much. He leaned over the side and pulled loose a piece of the meat of the fish where the shark had cut him. He chewed it and noted its quality and its good taste. It was firm and juicy, like meat, but it was not red. There was no stringiness in it, and he knew that it would bring a high price in the market, but there was no way to keep its scent out of the water, and the old man knew that a very bad time was coming. The breeze was steady. It had backed a little further into the northeast, and he knew that meant that it would not fall off. The old man looked ahead of him, but he could see no sails, nor could he see the hull nor the smoke of any ship. There were only flying fish that went up from his bow, sailing away to either side, and the yellow patches of gulfweed. He could not even see a bird. He had sailed for 2 hours, resting in the stern and sometimes chewing a bit of the meat from the marlin, trying to rest and to be strong when he saw the first of the 2 sharks. Aye, he said aloud. There is no translation for this word, and perhaps it is just a noise, such as a man might make involuntarily, feeling the nail go through his hands and into the wood. Galanos, G-A-L-A-N-O-S, Galanos, he said aloud. He had seen the second fin now coming up behind the first and had identified them as shovel-nosed sharks by the brown triangular fin and the sweeping movement of the tail. They had the scent and were excited, and in the stupidity of their great hunger, they were losing and finding the scent in their excitement, but they were closing all the time. The old man made the sheet fast and jammed the tiller. Then he took up the oar with the knife lashed to it. He lifted it as lightly as he could because his hands rebelled at the pain. Then he opened and closed them on it lightly to loosen them. He closed them firmly so they would take the pain now and would not flinch, and watched the sharks come. He could see their wide, flattened, shovel-pointed heads, shovel-pointed, now, and their white-tipped, wide pectoral fins. I don't know that I've ever seen a shovel-pointed head shark. Interesting. I'll have to look it up. They were hateful sharks, bad-smelling scavengers as well as killers. And when they were hungry, they would bite at an oar or the rudder of a boat. It was these sharks that would cut the turtle legs and flippers off when the turtles were asleep on the surface. And they would hit a man in the water if they were hungry, even if the man had no smell of fish or blood, nor of fish slime on him. Aye, the old man said, Galanos, come on, Galanos. They came, but they did not come as the Mako had come. One turned and went out of sight under the skiff, and the old man could feel the skiff shake as he jerked and pulled on the fish. The other watched the old man with his slitted yellow eyes, and then came in fast with a half circle of jaws wide to hit the fish where he had already been eaten. The line showed clearly on the top of his brown head and back where the brain joined the spinal cord, and the old man drove the knife on the oar into the juncture, withdrew it, and drove it in again into the shark's yellow cat-like eyes. The shark let go of the fish and slid down, swallowing what he had taken as he died. The skiff was still shaking with destruction the other shark was doing to the fish, and the old man let go of the sheet so that the skiff would swing broadside and bring the shark out from under. When he saw the shark, he leaned over the side and punched him. His hit only meat and the hide. He hit only meat, and the hide was set hard, and he barely got the knife in. Whew. The blow hurt not only his hands, but his shoulder too. But the shark came up fast with his head out, and the old man hit him squarely in the center of his flat-topped head as his nose came out of the water and lay against the fish. The old man drew the blade and punched the shark exactly in the same spot again. He still hung to the fish with his jaws hooked, and the old man stabbed him in his left eye. The shark still hung there. No, the old man said as he drove the blade between the vertebrae and the brain. It was an easy shot now, and he felt the cartilage sever. The old man reversed the oar and put the blade between the shark's jaws to open them. He twisted the blade, and as the shark slid loose, he said, "Go on, Galano." Slide down a mile deep. Go see your friend, or maybe it's your mother. Oh. The old man wiped the blade of his knife so he didn't lose the knife. That's good. And laid down the oar. Then he found the sheet, and the sail filled as he brought the skiff onto her course. They must have taken a quarter of him, and of the best meat, he said aloud. I wish it were a dream and that I had never hooked him. I'm sorry about it, fish. It makes everything wrong. He stopped and did not want to look at the fish now. Drained of blood and awash, he looked the color of the silver backing of a mirror, and his stripes still showed. I shouldn't have gone out so far, fish, he said, neither for you nor for me. I'm sorry, fish. Now, he said to himself, look at the lashing on the knife and see if it has been cut. Then get your hand in order, because there is still more to come. I wish I had a stone for the knife, the old man said after he had checked the lashing on the oar butt. I should have brought a stone. You should have brought many things, he thought, but you did not bring them, old man. Now is no time to think of what you do not have. Think of what you can do with what there is. You give me too much counsel, he said aloud. I'm tired of it. He held the tiller under his arm and soaked both his hands in the water as the skiff drove forward. God knows how much that last one took, he said, but she's much lighter now. He did not want to think of the mutilated underside of the fish. He knew that each of the jerking bumps of the shark had been meat torn away, and that the fish now made a trail for all sharks as wide as a highway through the sea. Wow. Okay. Well, he can't see land or fish or, I mean, fish, boats or anything else yet. It's just him in the ocean. And seems like he's probably got a long way to go yet before he gets home, and he's expecting more sharks. So I'll be curious to see how much of the fish makes it back. All right, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.